So there's this phrase we have all heard a million times, right? Knowledge is power.
Oh, yeah. It is plastered on practically every classroom wall in the world.
Exactly. We are drilled from day one to believe that just knowing things,
Yeah.
acquiring facts makes you powerful. But what if that is actually completely false? Or at least dangerously incomplete?
It is definitely one of the most pervasive myths in our culture, and it is actually exactly what we're getting into today.
Yeah, because if you look at the source material for this deep dive, Napoleon Hill's 1938 classic Think and Grow Rich, he just completely tears that idea apart right out of the gate.
He really does. We are zooming in today exclusively on Chapter 5, the chapter titled Specialized Knowledge, and he argues right away that knowledge is really merely potential power.
Right. Potential.
Yeah, it is like, imagine having a high-performance engine sitting on a garage floor. It has the potential to go 200 miles an hour, right? But until it is actually installed in a chassis and connected to a fuel source, it is just a heavy block of metal.
That is a great way to put it. And that distinction between potential and actual power is our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack why being a walking encyclopedia is honestly often a one-way ticket to mediocrity,
Yep.
and how the ability to organize knowledge is actually the skill that generates success and wealth.
And this is where Hill introduces a really crucial dichotomy. He splits it into general knowledge versus specialized knowledge.
Right.
He points out that the faculties of great universities possess practically every form of general knowledge known to civilization. But if knowledge is power were literally true while you roll, then every professor would be a titan of industry or a billionaire.
Which, historically is definitely not the case. Most professors, especially back in his time, had very little money.
Exactly. He is not disparaging academia at all, but he is highlighting a harsh economic reality. General knowledge, no matter how vast it is, doesn't automatically attract money or success.
Because it isn't organized. That is the missing link he talks about.
Right. Hill defines specialized knowledge not just as knowing a specific trade, but as knowledge that is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action toward a definite end.
And he is pretty critical of the educational system on this front.
Oh, very. He says schools teach us how to acquire facts, but they rarely teach us how to actually organize and use that knowledge after we have it.
Which brings us to a specific case study in the text that I think just perfectly illustrates this tension, this difference between fact hoarding and strategic thinking.
Oh, the courtroom story.
Yes, the Henry Ford courtroom story. I love this one so much.
It is so good.
So setting the scene is 1919, and there is this libel suit. A Chicago newspaper had published these editorials calling Henry Ford an ignorant pacifist.
And Ford, who deeply understood the value of his own reputation, he actually sued them for libel.
Right. And the newspaper's lawyers, they decide their defense strategy is going to be to literally prove the statement true in court. They set out to prove that Ford was in fact ignorant.
Which is such a bold strategy. I mean, they put one of the wealthiest men in the world on the witness stand and essentially tried to humiliate him with a pop quiz.
A literal pop quiz in front of a jury.
Yeah.
They started asking him questions that had absolutely nothing to do with automotive engineering or, business logistics.
Yeah, questions like, who was Benedict Arnold? And how many soldiers did the British send over to America in 1776?
This random trivia.
Totally. They were trying to expose his lack of formal schooling, hoping to paint him as this uneducated guy.
And Ford's reaction wasn't embarrassment at all. It was more like annoyance. He eventually just snapped.
He did. When they pushed him on that soldier question, he finally retorted something like, I do not know the exact number of soldiers the British sent over, but I have heard that it was a considerably larger number than ever went back.
Which is a brilliant, witty comeback on his own.
It is. But what he said next is really the philosophical core of this entire chapter.
Yeah, he pointed a finger right at the lawyer and delivered this totally crushing argument.
Ford basically said, if I really wanted to answer the foolish question you just asked, or any of the others, let me remind you that I have a row of electric push buttons on my desk.
The push buttons, yes.
And he explained that by pushing the right button, he could summon men who could answer any question he had concerning his business. And then he asks the court, why should I clutter up my mind with general knowledge for the purpose of being able to answer questions when I have men around me who can supply any knowledge I require?
Wow. It just effectively silenced the courtroom.
Yeah, it completely flipped the script. The lawyer was trying to prove Ford was ignorant because he didn't carry an encyclopedia in his head. But Ford was arguing that he was educated because he knew how to access the information he needed exactly when he needed it.
And that leads perfectly into Hill's redefinition of the word educated. Because I think this is a nuance that often gets lost when people talk about this book.
It really does. Hill digs into the Latin etymology of the word. It comes from educo, which actually means to educe, to draw out, or to develop from within.
Right, so in this context, education isn't about stuffing facts into your brain. It is about drawing out your capability.
Precisely. He writes that an educated person is not necessarily one who has an abundance of general or specialized knowledge. An educated person is one who has so developed the faculties of their mind that they may acquire anything they want without violating the rights of others.
Which really recontextualizes the whole mastermind concept that we've touched on before. In Chapter 5, the mastermind isn't just this abstract alliance. It is a practical, mechanical tool for knowledge retrieval.
Exactly. Ford didn't need to know the chemical properties of steel because he had a literal button that summoned a metallurgist.
That is the key mechanism. He didn't just ask people questions randomly. He had an organized group, his mastermind, that bridged the gap in his own formal education. He commanded the specialized knowledge of others.
And that is such a vital lesson for you if you are listening to this and feeling overwhelmed by what you don't know.
Yeah.
You do not need to know the answer. You need to know who knows the answer and have a plan to leverage their expertise.
But, okay, let's bring this down to earth for a second. Henry Ford was an industrial tycoon, right? He could afford to hire a legion of experts to just sit outside his office waiting for a buzzer.
Right.
For the average person listening, someone who might be looking to pivot careers or start a small business, we don't have a row of electric buttons on our desks. So where do we get this specialized knowledge?
Well, Hill anticipates that exact objection, and he provides what is essentially a shopping list for knowledge. In fact, he argues that specialized knowledge is actually one of the cheapest commodities on Earth.
Cheapest is a pretty strong word.
Yeah.
But his reasoning is just that the supply is massive, right?
Yeah, he lists 5 primary sources.
Yeah.
First is your own experience in education. Second is the experience and education available through the cooperation of others. That is your personal mastermind alliance.
Yeah.
Third is colleges and universities. Fourth, public libraries, which he beautifully describes as containing all the knowledge organized by civilization.
And the fifth one, which really seems to be his personal favorite for the ambitious individual, is special training courses, specifically night schools and home study.
Yes, and we have to remember the context of the 1930s here. Home study was the correspondence course. It is basically the grandfather of the online certification, or the massive open online course we have today.
Or the Courseiras and Udemys of the world.
Exactly. And Hill is incredibly bullish on this method, not just because of the content, but actually because of the discipline it requires.
Oh, yeah. There is this fascinating psychological insight he makes regarding the collection departments of these schools. He actually argues that being harassed for tuition payments is a character-building exercise.
It sounds so absurd at first, right?
Yeah.
But his logic is totally sound. He notes that because these are private businesses, they insist on payment whether you actually study or not. If you sign the contract, you pay.
They will come after you.
They will. And Hill observes that this forces the student to follow through. If you are paying for the course, you are way more likely to finish it just to get your money's worth. He says this trains the student in decision promptness and the habit of finishing what one begins.
It is wild how relevant that is today. It directly addresses the dropout culture we see with online courses now. I mean, how many people buy a digital course and literally never log in?
Oh, so many.
Hill is saying the financial hook is actually a huge benefit because it combats that human tendency to just quit when things get slightly hard.
Yeah, he states that the person who stops studying merely because they have finished school is forever hopelessly doomed to mediocrity. The willingness to undertake a home study course signals to an employer that you have ambition.
Right. You aren't just punching a clock. You are actively investing your own time and your own money to upgrade your mental assets.
Exactly. And this concept of purchasing knowledge to facilitate a pivot, it is illustrated with some really specific stories in the chapter. You have to remember, Hill was writing during the Great Depression, a time when entire industries just evaporated overnight.
Yeah, the bottom completely fell out of the market.
Right. And he tells the story of Stuart Austin Weir. Weir is basically the archetype of the midlife pivot.
Right. He was a construction engineer, very successful in his trade. But when the Depression hit, construction didn't just slow down, it completely stopped.
Yep. His stock in trade, his specialized knowledge of engineering suddenly lost all its market value.
So instead of just waiting around hoping the market would magically come back,
Yeah.
he took inventory. He realized he had assets, right? His mind, his health. But he needed a brand new product to sell.
So at over 40 years old, he went back to school to study law. And he didn't just dabble, he committed to a full retraining program. He passed the bar and built a highly successful practice.
Which Hill uses to prove that age is absolutely not a barrier to acquiring specialized knowledge. If the market shifts, you can, and honestly, you must, buy the new knowledge required to stay relevant.
Absolutely. But my favorite example in this section is actually the grocery salesman, because this story demonstrates that specialized knowledge doesn't always have to mean a formal degree.
Oh yes, the mobile bookkeeper.
Yeah, sometimes it just means combining two disparate skills to create something completely new. So this man had lost his job in a grocery store. He had a little bit of experience in bookkeeping, but he certainly wasn't a CPA.
Right.
So he took a specialized course in accounting and office equipment to sharpen that specific skill. But here is where the imagination factor comes in. He didn't just apply for bookkeeping jobs.
Because in the Depression, those jobs were incredibly scarce anyway.
Exactly. He realized that small grocers, the exact people he used to work for, couldn't afford a full-time accountant. But they still desperately needed the service. So he installed his office equipment in a light delivery truck.
He literally created a bookkeeping office on wheels.
He really did. He approached 100 small merchants and offered to do their books for a nominal monthly fee. He provided a necessary service at a price they could afford simply by scaling his time across multiple clients.
And the result of that plan was that he ended up paying 10 times more in income tax than the merchant who had originally fired him.
The lesson there is all about the combination. It wasn't just the accounting knowledge. It was the accounting knowledge plus the imaginative plan to deliver it via a truck to a specific underserved market.
Right.
That is the formula Hill is getting at. Specialized knowledge plus imagination plus implementation.
Which transitions us perfectly to what I think is the most actionable part of the chapter, and frankly, the part that feels the most modern to me. Hill outlines this incredible method for marketing personal services.
Yes.
He treats the act of getting a job not as asking for a favor, but as selling a commodity.
It is a radical shift in mindset for a lot of people. Hill argues that your services are a product just like a bar of soap or a car. You have to market them with the exact same intensity and strategy. And he illustrates this with the story of a woman who helped her son land a position.
So the son had just finished college and was looking for his first entry-level job. Now, the standard approach then and now would be to just knock on doors or fill out basic applications.
Right. But instead, his mother, who happened to have a background in commercial art and writing, sat down with him and drafted a comprehensive personal service sales plan. This wasn't a standard resume. It was much closer to what we would call a consulting brief or a formal business proposal today.
Let's actually break down what was in this document, because the level of detail is just staggering.
It was meticulous. First, it outlined the applicant's qualifications, which is the standard part.
Okay.
But then it pivoted entirely to the employer's needs. They researched the target company extensively.
Yeah.
The brief included a description of the specific position the son wanted, but more importantly, it detailed a concrete plan for how he would execute that job to save the company time and money.
She even included a bibliography, didn't she?
Yes, she cited her sources. She proved that the plan wasn't just guesswork. It was based on actual research into the industry's trends and that specific company's challenges. The document was typed beautifully, it was bound like a professional report, and it was presented directly to the decision maker.
The psychology of that approach is just brilliant. Most people walk in and ask, "Can you give me a job?" This document walked in and said, "Here is exactly how I will generate value for you, and here's the hard evidence that I can do it."
It completely removes the gambling element for the employer. You aren't just hiring a person and hoping they work out. You are buying a pre-packaged solution to a business problem. And the result, of course, was that the son got the job immediately.
And at a starting salary much higher than the standard entry-level rate.
Exactly. But the story doesn't even end there. The mother realized she had cracked a code.
She saw that this briefing method was a product in itself.
She started a whole business creating these portfolios for other job seekers. She hired a staff of typists and writers leveraging their specialized knowledge to produce these plans. And her compensation model was fascinating. She didn't just charge a flat fee up front.
No, she took a percentage of the increased salary she helped her clients negotiate.
Talk about betting on yourself. I will get you a raise and I will take a cut of the upside.
It shows supreme confidence in the value of the idea. She didn't invent typing. She didn't invent the job market. She invented a system for bridging the gap between talent and opportunity. That system was her specialized knowledge.
It is the perfect embodiment of what Hill is teaching.
So if we pull all these threads together for you listening today, we have Ford's push buttons, the mobile accountant, the personal service brief. What is the unifying theme here? Because we live in an era where information is infinite, right? I can pull up the tensile strength of steel on my phone in 10 seconds. Does that make Hill's advice obsolete?
On the contrary, I think it makes it more critical than ever. Think about it. If general knowledge was cheap in 1938 today, it is entirely free. It is zero scarcity value.
Right, anyone can Google it.
Exactly. You will never be paid high wages simply for knowing facts that anyone can look up. The value has shifted entirely to the synthesis and application of that knowledge.
It is not about having the data. It is about having the plan.
Exactly. The push-button philosophy today is really about digital orchestration. You might not need a row of men sitting outside your office, but you absolutely need to know which software, which consultant, or which AI tool acts as that specialist.
Yeah.
The person who succeeds today is the one who says, I have a definite purpose. I know what specialized knowledge is required to achieve it. I do not possess all of it myself, but I know exactly where to get it and how to arrange it into a working plan.
It effectively removes the excuse of ignorance, doesn't it? You can't just throw your hands up and say, I don't know how to do that, because the instructions or the person who knows the instructions, they're always available for purchase.
Hill writes a sentence that I think really sums up the entire chapter perfectly. He says, specialized knowledge is abundant and cheap. It is the idea, the plan for using that knowledge that is rare and priceless.
Man, that is good.
If you are feeling stuck, you are likely focusing way too much on gathering more dots and not nearly enough on connecting the dots you already have.
That is such a powerful distinction. I think we often procrastinate by learning. We read another book, we take another online course, feeling like we are making progress. But unless that learning is directed at a specific organized output, it is just general knowledge. It is that potential power just sitting in the garage.
And that is the ultimate trap. The goal is to move from being a storehouse of facts to being a factory of ideas. You need to be the architect, not just the library.
So here is the challenge for you listening as we close out this deep dive today. Think about your major purpose, that big goal you are working toward right now. Look at the gaps. What specialized knowledge are you currently missing?
And instead of trying to learn it all yourself from scratch, ask yourself, can I buy it? Can I rent it? Can I find a mastermind partner who already has it?
Maybe you need to create a personal service sales plan for your own career pivot. Or maybe you need to put your skills in a delivery truck and take them directly to the customer, like the grocer.
Whatever you do, don't just sit there hoarding facts. Push the button.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Chapter 5 of Think and Grow Rich. We will be back next time to tackle the next step on the ladder. Until then, keep planning.
Bye, everyone.